Welcome back to True Story with John Gibson. I'm thrilled today. Our guest is Dion Harris. Dion is a IFBB Pro, an actor, personal trainer, and a dear friend of mine. So, Dion, thank you so much for joining me.
I appreciate it, and congratulations to you on your accomplishments, and with the jiu-jitsu and the
Yeah.
martial arts. So it's pretty impressive,
Yeah.
And I tell people, you put your mind to, anything, you shall achieve, and everything starts within the mind. And if it's not there mentally, then everything else is not going to register. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to
Mhm.
happen. So
Mhm.
yeah, so yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
so yeah,
Thank you for those kind words. But I agree with you
yeah,
completely. Yeah, it all starts in the mind, and it's all about the commitment there first, right? The body will follow. But if you commit
exactly.
here, right?
It's
Yeah.
it.
One thing, and I want to share really briefly with everybody is, Dion was the first personal trainer I ever had. He was somebody that I looked up to. I was young. I was in my very early 20s. So I looked at him as this guy that was this big, strong guy. And then I got to know him as a man. And he just had such a good, strong moral compass and moral values. And was the hardest worker in the room. Before that was a saying. He was the
Appreciate that. Thank
hardest
you.
worker. It's true in the room. And he inspired me in so many ways. And he's gone on to such success. And it's really cool because he and I reconnected after almost, other than social media stuff, maybe a decade. And it's so cool for me to catch up with him and see he's just along the way. I've been sitting in my living room and I go, is that Dion in a protein commercial? And look at Dion, he's the Tennessee Titans. What's happening? So it's just been amazing to watch you on your journey, man. I'm like one
Well,
of your biggest fans and have
thank
been 15 years. So thrilled to have you. So thrilled to have you.
you.
Um,
Thank
yeah, thank you. With that as providing just a little of context, I wanted to see if, I'd love to just pick your brain and see if you could detail and share a little bit about, what it was like to finally win an IFBB Pro card. I mean, you're 6'2", maybe 3.
you. Yeah,
You have
yeah.
a huge
Six,
frame. What was that
six.
journey like from the first time you decided to walk into a gym and say, I picked bodybuilding, to you actually became a successful pro?
Yeah. Of course, the journey has been long. So, a lot of people don't realize, the time that it really takes, because there's different stages in order to become a pro. And, of course, you have the amateur level,
Mm-hmm.
which is the NPC. And then in the NPC, which stands for National Physique Committee, and in order to go to the IFBB, which is the highest pro rank,
Mm-hmm.
within that organization,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually the highest, pro division, worldwide. So,
Mm-hmm.
but the stages to get there, you have to do an amateur NPC competition. Then there is also within the NPC called a national qualifier.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to, go to the next level, you have to qualify, because I want to say it's first and second in the open class. There's
Mm-hmm.
novice classes, but the novice classes does not become eligible
Mm-hmm.
for the national level. So it has to be an open class. And once you compete in the open class, within your division, because there's, of course, overall, there's men's bodybuilding, there's women's physique, there's men's physique, there's women's bodybuilding, bikini, figure. So there's different categories for the men and women. And same thing goes for the women. If they want to become a pro or want to, go as their goal as to become a pro, then of course there's still different stages as well as far as the women. So same organization, two different divisions is in two different classes. And like I said, in order to get to the pro levels, once you go first or second in the open class, it'll qualify you for the nationals. The nationals is the only way to get to the IFBB.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say I did the Illinois states, and I did the men's bodybuilding open, and I came first. And then there's another gentleman who came second in the same class. Well, we both qualified for the national level, which is the next step up. And in the national levels, there are a few competitions. There's the Junior USAs, there's Junior Nationals, there's USAs, North Americans, the Universe. There is actually, you know, the Nationals, which is, you know, towards the end of the year. So there's different national organizations. And like I said, in some of the classes, you know, if you come first or second in that national level competition, then you're an eligible pro. You're a pro just because of becoming first or second in that class. So, and you know, of course, the criteria have actually changed over the years because of more divisions being added. At one time, you know, there was just bodybuilding and bodybuilding only. And that was it, you know. And so now you have, you know, 6-7 different categories for the men and the women. So
do you feel like that was a resurgence for your career or something really exciting for you? You know, the addition of classic bodybuilding and physique and these things?
It was. And I'm going to tell you, I actually stopped competing for a while.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I did. But I still had the drive because with me being a fitness trainer, you know, still motivating others. And of course, you know, still having to keep myself healthy and marketable at the same time. You know, I've always had that momentum, regardless if I was competing or not. And I knew, you know, at the time, you know, bodybuilding was just bodybuilding. And with me being my height, it was just a lot. It was just a lot for me to, you know, get in the groove to get to that point and then be competitive at that level. But, so, you know, back in 2015, I kind of came back and I did Mr. Olympia's competition, Mr. Brandon Curry. It was the Music City Muscle. So I did that back in 2015, did the super heavyweight bodybuilding class, and I won that. Then shortly after that, which is, I think it was 2016, they started another division for the men's, which was the classic physique. And when I found out the criteria wasn't as extreme as the regular bodybuilding, I was like, okay, this may be it. I'm going to go one more run because it was, you know, I've been working out, you know, 15, you know, years or so. And, you know, that was my reward to me is like, okay, this is going to be my way of rewarding myself for my hard work to get to the highest level ever. And it was one of those things to where, you know what, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to give it my all because this is going to be it to get to that point. And once I did Brandon Curry's show, that qualified me for the Nationals. 2016, they came out with the new classic division, which is more on aesthetics, more on the look of the early 80s Arnold Schwarzenegger type of look. So that's where the classic bodybuilding kind of came into play because of the different looks versus the bodybuilding where you have to be very, very massive with detail. And so with me being my height, you know, that's a lot of work for my frame. And so that worked perfect because classic division, you know, you kind of went in based on your height. And so based on your height, you had to come in a certain weight and you had to make weight. But the only thing about, you know, the national and the pro level classic physique, when you're in the national level and now it's in the amateur as well, but there's actually divisions based on your height for each height category. So like the A, B, C, D, depending on your height. And so nationals were the same way. And once I went to nationals, after qualifying in 2017, I did the Masters Nationals and I actually won my class there. And of course, there's different height categories, you know, for that. And once you get your pro card in those divisions, then once you go pro, everybody's against everybody. There's nothing broken down. So it's
Right,
sort of like a
right.
Royal Rumble.
I
And
remember
that's
following that
where,
contest.
get
Did you
picked
gold
up.
medal in the 35 and the 40 in
Yep.
both classes? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that
Yep.
was really
Sure
cool.
did. And so, but I'm going to tell you what was really, 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 really interesting. Before I even went to nationals, that was in, that was in the year of 2016. I remember going to the Arnold, and when I went to the Arnold, I was sitting there watching the show, okay, and it was like around 2017, and like I said, I had no clue at that time that I was going to be going to nationals and becoming a pro. But I'm gonna tell you, during my first year in 2017 and going into 2018, I qualified for the Arnold.
Wow. You manifested it. Wow.
Manifest.
Yeah.
And so all my idols became my rivalries.
Yeah.
And it was so crazy how I was just sitting there spectating the actual pro show. And there I was at the same show that I was spectating a little over a year.
Yeah.
I was up on that stage.
That's amazing.
2 times in a row.
Amazing.
So,
yeah.
So I was like,
huge
wow.
lifetime accomplishment, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure. And amazing. You know, it's so funny. I think it's important to share these things because you never know who you could be inspiring, you know, and on the peripheral, I've always had a love for bodybuilding. I didn't have the genetics for bodybuilding, but I never stopped bodybuilding. So I never needed a competition, but I loved it. And you were somebody that again, on the peripheral, and I already spoke to a little bit, but you were so inspiring to me because to me, you had the greatest genetics I had ever seen, but you had this big frame and you were so hardworking. So when you ultimately achieved that goal, it literally was like the expression, it couldn't have happened to a better guy. It was like, that's who you wanted to see realize that dream. So it's so cool to hear you detail that. Can you share a little bit about maybe from your perspective, what maybe is a common misconception about bodybuilders? I mean, not everybody is like you and me and they love it. This is in them, motivating people and building their bodies, you know, on the perception, I think is just not always positive. And I don't understand it because it's been such a positive thing in my life. From your perspective, do you think like there are any common misconceptions you run into?
Well, I think, a lot of times, of course, I feel like anybody can compete. And, I feel like if this is what you want to do, then anybody can compete. But it's another level. Do you have what it takes to get to the pro level? Okay.
Right.
And so when you're looking at a magazine, you're looking at a video, sometimes people don't realize how strenuous the regimen is. Okay. Sure. And a lot of people think, okay, you just eat clean and you just work out. Well, it's more than that. If you're working, full time, competing is another job. And everything is about timing because of the certain condition that you have to achieve in order to be, competition ready. Sure. And of course, when you get to the last week, you carb deplete, and the carb depletion, of course, it's a little bit of science behind it. But when you carb deplete in your last week, you're actually making your body, it's almost like tricking the body. So once you deplete and put the carbs back in, and you're consuming very little water because you have to pull back the water. Some people's different, but I normally pull back the water and pull back my carbs, but I start loading my carbs after weigh-ins. So that way, once my body gets the carbs back in, it's like it's never had it before. And what that does, it creates a volumizing effect into the muscle because the carbs is expanding your body, making it fuller. And so by minimizing the water, that's how you have a tight, dry look by being fuller because you're adding carbs. And what some people call a carb load or filling out. That's what they call that process in, you know, the competition terms. And people do not realize, you know, the strenuous part that, you know, the competitors go through, you know, in order to get that look. And it's you know, and yeah, it's diet, but it's some manipulation to that too. And a lot of times when you see competitors getting ready for the show and you see the cheekbones sucked in, I mean, that's just that last week where, you know, you're depleting and, you know, then you're slowly adding certain foods back in order to, you know, enhance that illustration of a cartoon character.
Right.
I guess that's the best way to say. So yeah. And so people don't really realize that. And so
the science,
you know,
right?
it's just it's just more than just, you know, working out and eating clean. Yes, that is number one. But competition level, that's a whole nother level. And once again, when we talked about you know, being strong mentally, that you definitely gonna have because you know, you might have done the physical part of it, but the mental aspect to really, you know, endure and to go with the process, that's another level of achieving. And not everybody's cut out for that. And a lot of people aren't cut out to, you know, eating the same similar foods, you know, day in and day out. And when you're on a competition level regiment, things don't change that much. And of course, you know, to keep me sane, I'll have a cheat meal towards the end of the week. Just a meal, not a day, a meal. People be like, oh, okay, so this is my whole day to kind of eat. Like, no. A cheat meal might be a burger, fries. And people are like, well, they're going to mess you up. But when you're so strict and so in tune into your regiment, that's not really going to throw you off because your metabolism is so high and, you know, it's really burning it off. And so that's what keeps me sane. Of course, I don't do any cheat meals 2 weeks prior because we're getting down to the nitty gritty. And, you know, the cheat meal, you know, does help me. And even for my clients that I have, you know, not that I have them on a strict regimen like myself, but I do apply, you know, some of the, you know, the nutrition tactics, you know, that I know. And it'll still help them out. You know, but it won't be as strenuous because, like I said, competition level, it is no joke. And people don't realize, you know, the strenuous, you know, activities that we have to do in order to get that look. So,
I think if everybody knew the self-discipline it took, two things you touched on specifically. One, to be able to diet, to really diet at a competition level, to be strict enough to eat every 2.5, 3 hours, and to be a plain chicken breast and white rice, and like know that that's real. That's real. People tell you your whole life, chicken, rice, protein, complex carbs. That's the secret. It's food, and you're like, yeah, right. It is. You know, people don't realize the discipline it takes. You know, and that's so admirable. And it is it's a job in itself. It's 24/7 because you have to live in your own mind. And when you're nervous or have cravings or whatever, you have to be disciplined enough to trust the process. Like you said.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So switching gears a little bit, as a personal trainer, like what are just some of your, like maybe outside of just bodybuilding competitors, just with everyday folks, like what are some just your training philosophies or principles, maybe things you've just learned along the way that you like to just share with everybody out there?
Well, number one, consistency is key. And, you know, I have, you know, people that wants to work with me, and the first thing they'll do sometimes is show me what somebody else looks like. This is what I want to look like. Dion, this is what I want to look like. See this. And I was like, okay, I mean, it's good to see your goals. But everybody on this earth is genetically structured different. No one on earth has the same body type. Well, you might have the same body type, but the genetically structured to have a certain look like the next person, like me and you, for instance, we can be, you know, the same height, the same muscularity, similar body type as far as how we're structured, but genetically, let's say if you have, you know, 4 striations that comes around in your chest when you flex, and I only have 2, then
Mm-hmm.
it would be hard for me to get those muscle fibers because genetically I
Yeah.
only have 2 and you have
Right.
4. And so you can only make the best version of yourself.
Right.
And it's good to have goals, but when people really try to put themselves into looking exactly like someone, then sometimes, you know, they're like setting themselves up for failure, and then internally they can't, they get frustrated.
Yeah.
But I have to tell everybody, my goal is to make you the best version of yourself
Mm-hmm.
from when you first came and consulted with me. And I feel like with consistency and number one, patience, because all of this takes time. You know, like for where I'm at, it did not take overnight.
Mm-hmm.
For what you do as far as, you know, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu,
Yeah.
that just did not come overnight.
No.
That is a, you know, very, very intense, you know, sport that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And the techniques, that takes time to get to a certain level, to get to a certain belt. That takes time. And people, you know, always, you know, think when they see something, the instant gratification, oh, okay. And then when they don't want to put the time in,
Yeah.
because that's what's required, they want to quit. It doesn't go like that. Everybody who's successful, you know, today, whether it's, you know, somebody else outside of fitness, but everybody who is successful today, you best believe they have put in the time.
Yes.
And just say, for instance, somebody say, oh, I want to be rich like Jay-Z. Do you know what Jay-Z's been through over his lifetime? Do you know where he started? Do you know how many years it took to get to where he's at? You know, the ladies, I want to be, you know, a celebrity like Beyonce. Do you not know where she started to be where she's at?
Right.
It's about time and it's about patience. And time, patience, consistency all go together. You cannot leave one out without having the other components to make it work.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I'll say this too, lastly, too, just to validate that a little bit. So I did share earlier that Dion was my very first personal trainer. So he gave me the foundation of pretty much my physical fitness, but he also helped me get this sucker back in 2006. My man. So this was pre-physique. This was when bodybuilding was the only option. And I did my best, but that guy got me to the trophy. And there you go. And it was an awesome process. And I encourage everybody to maybe not compete. I mean, I actually do if they have the ambition. But the process of at least going through that experience, I learned so much about myself. And I learned a lot about my body, and something I couldn't learn from jiu-jitsu or wrestling growing up. What Dion was detailing about filling out, carving up, I had like my cheat meal on my diet. And I remember eating a cup of rice and a half a potato and a banana and feeling my body go like this. And I was like, this is real. And anyway, you know, so I just encourage people to learn and try these things, you know, and if they have the heart for it, you know. But Dion, one last question before I let you go. Can you share a little? I totally switching gears, but can you share a little bit about you working with the Tennessee Titans? That's such a cool experience. How did that happen? And man, I'm watching football one day, and there you are, man.
Yeah, that was a great experience. There was actually some former cheerleaders for the Titans that kind of informed me that they're trying to go with a different route. And they were looking for a Titan to kind of, you know, brace the fields to help, you know, rally up the fans and so forth. So I guess I'm a human mascot, let's say.
Yeah.
And so with me being the first ever human mascot ever in the NFL,
awesome,
was huge. And when the opportunity was presented to me, you know, I thought about it and I was like, I don't know. And so when I finally decided that, hey, okay, let's give it a run, you know, I came and you know, did my thing. And as far as building my own character to, you know, rally up, you know, 30,000+, you know, Tennessee Titan fans. And I'm gonna tell you, I've been on stage a lot of time as a competitor, but to come out of the tunnels with the players onto a field, and you look every perimeter around, and the stadium was so loud you could not hear anything. My first time going out, I almost went blank because I've never felt that type of energy in my whole life. And, you know, I kind of adapt to things well, but that just kind of made me just freeze just for a little bit, just because I was like, I cannot believe that I am an icon to the Tennessee Titans NFL football team.
Wow. Yeah. You were perfect for it, though. You were perfect.
And I was very, very blessed and grateful to have that opportunity. I had one of the baddest creators who made that design.
Yeah.
His name Prince. And when you look up this man, he's incredible when it comes to like sci-fi and special effects. This man has been on all these reality shows and special effects for, you know, Comic-Con. This man is bad. But I'm gonna tell you how bad he was. When I had to actually do the fitting, everything that you saw on me was custom made for me.
Perfect.
And carbon fiber. But this man, other than the cape, there was actually measuring tape. And his assistant, Cheryl, she had made the cape. And of course, that had to be measured. But everything else, this man, Rick, had took aluminum foil to mold certain areas to make the whole outfit. That's how bad this man was.
Amazing.
Aluminum foil.
Amazing.
And I was like, when he did that, and I was like, hey, we done? I was like, you got, he's like, no, I got it. And when everything was done and made, you saw these bad pieces of this shiny, nice carbon fiber helmets, even the sword, you know, the actual piecings that went around the waistline.
Yeah.
I mean, everything from head to toe, this man made from aluminum foil.
He's amazing. An artist, a true artist.
Yeah, definitely, man. He's very, very talented. Very talented.
So we're coming up on time here. Where can everybody reach out to you? You know, for influence, for positive motivation, for personal training inquiries, all those things.
Okay, yeah. Actually, you can reach out to me on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is IFBB Pro _D.Harris.
Perfect.
Or via email at dbxfit, that's dbxfitt @gmail.com. So those are the best ways to reach out to me. I do, you know, check my messages, and if it's something you're interested in, as far as the training or trying to, you know, get a little kickstart in your program or whatever, then, you know, leave me a message, and, you know, set everything up to have a consultation. So
yeah, and I've been a personal client of this man, and he helped me reach my goals. So please, I encourage everybody to do just that and reach out. With that, thank you again so much, Dion, for joining me.
No problem.
Totally my pleasure having you and sharing your insights. This is True Story with John Gibson and Dion Harris. Thank you.
Thank you, man. See y'all. All right.